Are you getting ready for your event and you're curious what your AV operator or your graphics operator needs to execute your stage program? Well, I'm an event producer and sometimes graphics operator, and I just want to go through the basics that you need to know as an event organizer or an event planner to set your AV up for success from a graphics or PowerPoint perspective for your next event. Before we jump into it, I'm Logan Clements. I'm a freelance event producer based in Seattle, Washington, but I execute events here and all over the world. I do want to remind you to like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell so you get notified every other Monday when I drop new videos. That's 2 new videos a month and so many videos you can go back and watch. I'm also the co-host of the Better Events podcast with fellow event pro Mary Davidson. More content about events, about event planning, event management, running your own business. We drop new episodes every single Wednesday wherever you listen to podcasts. So you're getting ready for your first event or maybe your 30th event and you want to just make sure your AV runs a little bit smoother. Well, your key things that your graphics operator or AV team needs are your slides, your fonts, and your speaker script and or making sure that you're utilizing a clicker or a perfect cue. Now, first one, slides. Seems obvious, but your graphics operator needs the slides. Ideally, those slides have already been downloaded, so they are offline in a PowerPoint format, and usually it's helpful to have them on a drive. Nowadays, some people's USB little mini drives aren't big enough for how big these PowerPoints are getting, and that's because they often have lots of photos or videos are going to make those files quite large. So I'm going to link to a SanDisk that is $100 on Amazon, but I promise you it has saved and revolutionized how much time I spend getting PowerPoints from one device to another. Doesn't help with the downloading, but at least the transferring is a lot faster, and it's a super high storage rate, so I'm not going to need a new one for a really, really long time. So it's a great investment. I'm going to link it up here. I'll link it below as well. But make sure you have those slides. You don't understand how much time you waste on site during your setup process if you have to download slides in real time and you're wasting your graphic operator and the graphic operator, I would say, is the person who's actually advancing and running your slides in event. Depending on the size of your event, that graphics op might be wearing multiple hats if you only have like a 1-person or 2-person tech team. I have been a graphics operator, like I said. I do this for some of my smaller clients where I have one tech who runs all the audio and they help me set up all the video stuff, but then I'm the one running the slides. I have had some clients try to give me Google Slides, and while that will work, and often there are certain features of Google Slides that are a little bit more friendly for speakers in the drafting process, I really don't recommend running your show off of them because it is so dependent on how good your internet is. And a lot of these venues are either charging you a lot for internet or it's spotty at times, and I would hate for you to lose your content because the internet glitched. I did have one show in this past year that I ran off of Google Slides because they had lots of changes and they had a lot of different speakers. So they wanted us to be able to be in a show presenting from that document while someone was making real changes to slides later on. And because of that, we ran them off of Google Slides, but at the start of the day, they knew it and they told their speakers, hey, whatever changes got locked at 8 a.m., we're downloading that PowerPoint. And if there's any issues with the primary running on Google Slides, the backup was just running PowerPoint. So you always need to have that backup plan or else internet goes out, Google Slides crashes, all of a sudden you don't have any content. So making sure your graphics op has your PowerPoint. Second, and a lot of times forgotten, fonts. So this is literally like the font that you use in your PowerPoint. Now, if you're using like a Times New Roman or like a Helvetica or something that's more common, you probably don't need to give your font. But this is something if you've ever had a designer help you or a creative team help you with your slides, they've probably chosen a unique font. And so what you need to do is make sure you have those font files also downloaded, and ideally on this drive that you're giving the graphics operator. And for them, they should know this already, but if you ever need help troubleshooting, make sure they install the font on whatever laptop or device they're using for your slides in show, and then open your PowerPoint. If you don't give them your fonts or they do that in the wrong order and they don't load the fonts and just open the PowerPoint, PowerPoint is smart enough that it will say, oh, you meant to have text here. I don't have that font you're referencing. So I'm just going to insert another font that is maybe quote unquote close. And if you're a designer, you're like, Logan, it's probably definitely not close. But just good to know if you're using any unique fonts, you want to make sure those font files are also downloaded and you give those on a drive or a USB to your graphics op so they can make sure they have the correct fonts and the correct slides. And my third one I mentioned was a script, or making sure your speakers are using a clicker. Why do you need a script? Because if your graphics op is running these slides for you, they need to know when to advance them. And so if you have a script, whether it's full sentences, what's going to be said, or even if it's just bullet points that can help them roughly follow along, a talk track is better, which is like full script, word for word. I'm going to say this exact word. When I say potato, that's when you advance the slide. That is the best. Or if you're unable to provide that, making sure you talk to your AV team ahead of time and there is a clicker and or a perfect cue. I say clicker is like, that's going to help you advance. Most of us call the clicker is like the little USB ones. Those don't work very long. I'll link to my other video about what a perfect cue is. That's a clicker. It just works from a farther range, meaning I can have my laptop in the back of the room, but I'm presenting from the front of the room. Again, I'll link that perfect cue video, but making sure if you have that, then you don't need a script because your speaker is going to be advancing your slides. You know me, you know I love a backup plan, so I would always say if you have a script, I'd always still provide it to your graphics op, just because if your clicker starts having issues, that helps them follow along and advance along with what the speaker is saying. Or if your speaker puts their notes in their speaker notes in PowerPoint, that's also really helpful. Just, again, helps put everybody on the same page. You know, I love a bonus tip. So my bonus thing to give your graphics operator would be to give them a PNG or a JPEG, like a still image of whatever your event title graphic is, or whatever logo lockup, whatever image would be okay to be on the screen if there was ever a moment where they didn't know what to put on screen. For my smaller clients, the way I hack this is we are often doing like extended display with PowerPoint when we're using one laptop to then show onto a projector or a screen. And so it'll show me speaker notes on this laptop and the actual slides full screen on the big screen that the attendees can see. And what I always do is I go in and I set the background of the laptop to be that key image, whether it's your welcome graphic or it's just the logo of your organization. And what that does is for any time if I accidentally exit out of PowerPoint or it crashes, it's going to default to your screensaver. And I will admit, my personal screensaver is just one of the Mac defaults. But if you set that, that's what attendees will see. And that's just a nice little hack. They also will want it probably to store as other things in their backup slides or filler slides they'll do sometimes. So it's just helpful to have it. Even if you don't use it, your graphics op will thank you later. So hopefully you learned a little more about what your graphics operator needs for your next event, whether you're an event planner, an event host, to set up your presentations for success and make sure everything runs smoothly. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat below, and I always appreciate any comments or likes if you get any value out of this. I'm Logan Clements. I'm a freelance event producer. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.